Happy Martin Luther King Day, my lovely followers. It's your queen, Tara. I hope all of you had a good weekend. I know I did. I feel like today we have to take a moment to talk about the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King and how he helped to establish civil rights in this country. He was a good man. He did a lot of good work in his life, and he was unfortunately assassinated. Officially, he was assassinated by James Earl Ray, though I personally don't believe that. I'm pretty sure the FBI or the CIA was somehow involved in what happened to him, though I can't really prove it. Because King was a threat to the establishment, to the warmongering, racist establishment that wants to keep minorities down, that wants to keep anybody they deem as a minority, whether that be a racial or otherwise, or that be racial or trans or whatever. They want to keep anybody who isn't in the establishment down, anybody who doesn't bend the knee to the oligarchs and the Zionist lobby and the warmongers. They want to keep those people down. They want to have an excuse to crack down on those people and abuse them and traumatize them and control them. That's what they want. That's what the powers that be want. And that's why they did what they did to Dr. King. Because he was a threat to their system. He was a threat to the oligarchy. He was a threat to the pro-war racist establishment. And they couldn't have that. So the powers that be had to take him out. We already know for a fact that the FBI was illegally wiretapping Dr. King, and that they tried to blackmail him using sex tapes of an alleged affair that he went on. So we know that the federal government was no fan of Dr. King. Because they did, in fact, try to bribe him and blackmail him. Not bribe, sorry, blackmail. They did, in fact, try to blackmail him. We know that for a fact. We know that they tried to blackmail him. That's provable. You can look that up. You can look. I encourage all my lovely followers to look into the FBI and what they did to Martin Luther King. I'd encourage all my lovely followers to do a bit of independent research about that. Sorry, I'm walking around out here and I'm like, my coat is caught on a briar. Hold on. Sorry. Sorry about that. My coat got caught on a briar because like I was scratching my back and like stupid briars got my coat. Sorry. Stupid briars. Ugh. Anyway, what was I saying for that interruption? Dr. King was targeted by our government. And the reason I'm bringing this up today is because it feels relevant with what's happening in Minneapolis, the current ICE invasion, how these masked, heavily armed Gestapo thugs are terrorizing anybody who's brown. Anyone who looks a certain way, or who pisses them off, or who doesn't comply with their demands, is going to be terrorized and assaulted. And we need to talk about that. We need to talk about how the states need to stand up to this federal tyranny, because what ICE is doing, what the federal government is doing in Minneapolis and other cities, it's blatant overreach. It's blatant federal overreach. It is blatant federal overreach. That's exactly what it is. It is blatant overreach by the federal government. And the states need to stand up to this, because if the state governments do not stand up to this tyranny and call out their National Guard to protect the people of these states from the fascist thugs, then what good are they? What's the point of even having the states if they're not going to do their job and keep the feds in check? Our federal government in this country, in this dying corporate empire called America, is completely out of control. It takes half our income away to send to foreign countries. It supports a military-industrial complex that is actively harmful to world peace, to the rest of the world. It supports the oligarch class, the billionaire class, who want to harvest as much wealth as possible, who want to tax you to death and make your life hard and make your prices skyrocket and inflate your currency so they can get rich. The powers that be hate you, my lovely followers. The oligarchs hate you. They hate you. Like, I always say this, I always make that a point to say that you need to realize that these oligarchs and these people in charge hate you. They control the puppet politicians, and they hate you. And the ICE Gestapo need to be reined in. ICE needs to be abolished. All these people doing these things and terrorizing these citizens need to be in prison. They need to be stripped of their protections and put in prison. But that's not happening because the orange fascist is giving them immunity. The orange fascist is giving his little brown shirt ICE Gestapo immunity. So when they go around and they yank people out of their cars, and they drag pregnant women across the ground, and they assault Target workers, who, by the way, are legal U.S. citizens, and throw them face first into the blacktop and abuse them, and they murder lesbian moms, and then assist the family of her son in taking him away from his remaining mother. That's what they do. That's what the fascist Gestapo in Washington do. And the state governments, especially in Minnesota and states affected by ICE, they need to grow a pair of balls. They need to stand up and say no to this federal government and use their National Guard for its intended purpose, which is to defend the state of Minnesota. A National Guard, the National Guard exists to defend their state. They do not exist to serve the tyrants in Washington. I don't care what the bureaucrats say. I don't care what corrupt politicians and the laws that the oligarchs pay to have written. If you go back to the Constitution, you go back to the founding of this country, then the states had militias. The states were sovereign. And the states were supposed to be a check on federal power. And we've kind of lost that, and it needs to come back. It's time. It's time for the state of Minnesota to stand up. It's time for Tim Walz to finally be a man and prove himself and activate the National Guard to protect the citizens of Minnesota. Because this is ridiculous. What's going on is like ridiculous and atrocious. And it's horrible. It's horrible to have these fascists going around where they can murder people and have immunity and have no accountability. No body cams, no accountability, no nothing. They're a bunch of undertrained, trigger-happy thugs. A bunch of hateful young incels who were given guns and badges and authority they don't deserve to go around and harass and intimidate innocent Americans. And this is ridiculous, and this can't stand. This is tyranny. This is blatant tyranny. And it's got to come to a stop, my lovely followers. It's time for the state governments to stand up. It's time for us to collectively admit that this system, this federal empire we live in, is fundamentally broken. And that the only real solution is peaceful national divorce. Because we are deluding ourselves if we think it's ever going to get better. And if it doesn't stop, if we do not break up this empire and have leaders that actually represent us, that actually represent the constituents of the state they live in, and that can make decisions for the good of those constituents, if we do not have sovereign leaders who can act in the people's best interests, then we've lost. We are controlled by an oligarchy. We are controlled by a handful of billionaires who actively hate us, who actively hate those with less than them, and who do not care about the suffering that their policies cause. They do not care if they break the economy. They do not care if you and I cannot afford to make ends meet. They do not care if young Americans cannot afford to get out of their parents' house. And it's time that we recognize the problem is the oligarchy. And the problem is this federal empire that we are forced to be part of, that we are forced to support with our tax dollars, that does nothing for us, that siphons off half your income by force under threat of imprisonment and sends it to Israel, sends it to Ukraine, sends it to all these other countries around the world to prop up regimes and support the empire. And so the CIA can use it to cause problems all over the world. This has to stop. Like, what's going on in Minneapolis is just the start. If we allow the federal government to get away with this, if we do not hold them accountable, then it's going to spread. It's going to spread far and wide. And ICE will be in every city. Those thugs will be terrorizing every city, every major city in the country, eventually. If state leaders do not grow a pair of balls and realize that this union, being in this corrupt empire no longer benefits the average person. It's no longer worth it. The trade-offs are no longer worth it. Like, why are we paying all these taxes to this federal government that does not represent us? It represents the billionaire class. It represents the oligarchs. It represents the Zionist lobbyists. It represents the evangelical retard cult. That's who they represent. They don't represent us. They don't represent the real people who go to work every day, who aren't brainwashed, who aren't stupid, who aren't like these MAGA retards. And we need a national divorce. We need a peaceful national divorce. I'm still calling for that. Because the system is fundamentally broken and voting will not change it. The Democrats have already proven themselves to be feckless, weak bureaucrats who are unable to rein in the radical right-wingers in the Republican Party. They are unable and unwilling to do their jobs and stand up for us. They already proved it. They already proved it when they ended the shutdown and allowed that corrupt scumbag from Kentucky to ban CBD products. Like, we have an out-of-control empire, we do. And it needs to be reined in. It's a shame that we can have things like the murder of Renee Good happen and not have anyone held accountable, and not have these thugs who murdered this woman go to prison. It's a shame. It's a shame that we are ruled by a regime that wants to blame this tiny 1%, that wants to blame trans people, that wants to blame this tiny 1% of the population for all their problems. That's what we are ruled by. We are ruled by a regime that wants to blame trans people for all their problems. That wants to blame immigrants, that wants to blame everybody but the oligarch class, everybody but the billionaires who are the real problem. They want to blame everybody but the billionaire class. Who are by far the biggest problem we have in our society. I think I'm going to bring this video to a close now. I don't want to do a super long video. I just wanted to hop on and make a video for you guys and wish you all a happy Martin Luther King Jr. Day. And talk about the situation in Minneapolis and how state governments need to grow a pair and stand up before it's too late. Before there's no one left who can stop this tyranny that's coming. And how national divorce, peaceful national divorce, is still honestly the best option on the table as of right now. So anyway, I just wanted to make you all aware of that. All my lovely followers. Thank you for watching this video. Thank you for your support, Thank you for your support, especially if you watch this video to the end. I hope you found it informative and entertaining. Please like and subscribe and all that streamer stuff. And we're off.